Julian Croft had spent 30 years making sure nobody ever asked about the summer his sister died. He bought newspapers before they could publish the story. He acquired properties because they contained old records. He paid people who knew what happened to sign their silence away. Altogether, the damage control cost him more than $1 billion. And for 30 years, it worked. Until the night Julian was handed a Lifetime Achievement Award in front of 3,000 people, and his 24-year-old son walked onto the live broadcast with a photograph Julian hadn't seen in 18 years. "You spent $1 billion making sure nobody knew the truth," Daniel said. Julian froze. Then Daniel turned the photograph toward the cameras. "So tonight, Dad." He looked directly into the lens. "I think they deserve to know why." The Grand Meridian Ballroom smelled like champagne and orchids. Chandeliers threw gold light across 3,000 faces, all turned toward the stage where Julian Croft stood in a black tuxedo, a glass trophy shaped like a rising sun catching the light in his hands. Above him, on a screen 40 feet wide, gold letters spelled out, "The Global Innovator Lifetime Legacy Award." He was 61 and looked it only around the eyes. Everywhere else, money had smoothed him into something ageless. The MC's voice rolled on. Something about vision, about a man who'd built 3 companies from nothing, about legacy. Julian had heard the word so many times that night, it had started to sound foreign in his own ears. He hadn't heard from his son in 6 years. He told himself that number, like everything else, was under control. Backstage, in a service corridor lined with folding tables and coiled extension cords, a 24-year-old man in a rented suit stood watching a monitor propped on a road case. His name was Daniel. He had his mother's narrow shoulders and his father's exact eyes, a detail that used to make strangers go quiet when they saw the two of them in the same room. Back when there had been rooms they shared, in his jacket pocket was a single photograph, its corners gone soft from 4 years of being carried and never once shown to anyone. In his other hand, a manila folder, thick with printouts, deeds, wire transfers, non-disclosure agreements with names blacked out. 3 years of quiet, careful, expensive proof. He hadn't come to the ballroom on a whim. He'd spent those 3 years trying every other door first. Letters, his father's assistant, returned unopened. A lawyer's meeting that ended with Julian sliding a settlement offer across the table instead of an answer. A phone call, 8 months ago, where Daniel had said his aunt's name out loud for the first time in his father's presence, and Julian had simply hung up. Tonight was not impulse. Tonight was the last door. A stagehand with a headset caught his eye. "You're up in 90 seconds. You sure about this?" Daniel looked at the folder, then at the small camera clipped to his laptop. "I gave him 3 years to do this the easy way," he said. "He's had his chance." Inside the ballroom, the MC gestured toward the wings. "And now, a special video tribute, arranged personally for tonight's honoree." The screen behind Julian went dark, then flickered to life. Julian turned toward it, still smiling, expecting the highlight reel his PR team had cut together, the ribbon cuttings, the hospital wing dedication, the photograph from Davos where a head of state had shaken his hand. Instead, Daniel's face filled the screen. Live, backstage. The room didn't understand yet. Confused laughter rippled through a few tables. Julian's smile held for exactly 1 second longer than it should have, the kind of pause that, later, commentators would slow down frame by frame. "Hi, Dad," Daniel said, his voice steadier than he expected. "Most of you know me as no one. That's kind of the point. Tonight you're giving him an award for his legacy. I want to talk about the part of it he's spent a fortune making sure nobody ever sees." The ballroom went silent, the way rooms only go silent when something is about to happen that cannot be unhappened. Her name was Elena, my father's sister, my aunt. She'd be 54 this year. if she'd made it past 19. Daniel held up the folder, not opening it yet, just letting the camera find it. For 30 years, my father has spent more money erasing her than most people make in 10 lifetimes. He acquired the company that owned his family's old estate, just so he'd control what happened to the property records. He bought out a local newspaper archive that ran one story about the accident and had it pulled. He funded settlements with 3 people who were there that night, all of them under agreements that made sure they'd never speak about it again. Add it up, and it comes to just over $1 billion, spent across 30 years, on one single purpose: making sure the world only ever knew the version of him that never lost anything. Julian's hand tightened on the trophy. Across the ballroom, phones rose in a wave, screens catching the light like a field of small moons. "But I'm not here to just tell you she existed," Daniel went on. "I'm here because I don't think anyone in this room actually knows what happened to her. I don't think I fully did, until 3 years ago." He let that sit. On the monitor, Julian's face, normally so unreadable in front of cameras, had gone the particular kind of still that comes right before someone decides whether to lie. He was 22. She was 19. There was a storm coming in that night, faster than the forecast said. Everyone who was there told him to wait it out on shore. But my grandfather, Julian's father, had spent that whole summer telling Julian he wasn't tough enough to run the company someday. So when Elena wanted to take the boat out one more time before she left for school, my father didn't say no. He wanted her, and everyone else at that lake house, to see that he wasn't afraid of anything, not even a storm. Julian's jaw worked, but no words came. The boat went over less than a quarter mile from shore. My father made it back. Elena didn't. And when he came out of the water and told his own father what happened, my grandfather didn't ask if he was okay. He asked one question. Daniel's voice thinned, but held. "Does anyone else know it was your idea to go out?" And when my father said no, my grandfather told him, "Then it stays that way. If the world finds out you did this, everything we've built collapses with you in it." A murmur moved through the ballroom, like wind through a field. "My father didn't erase Elena because he stopped loving her," Daniel said. "He erased her because for 30 years he couldn't separate her memory from the version of himself that made a boy choose his pride over his sister's safety. It was easier to make her disappear than to let anyone, including himself, ask why." He set the folder down, out of frame, and reached instead for the photograph. He held it up to the small camera. On the screen behind Julian, 9 million people saw a faded picture of 2 teenagers on a dock, arms slung around each other mid-laugh. One of them, unmistakably, a young Julian Croft. "I found this, and everything in that folder, in a storage unit he forgot he still paid rent on," Daniel said. "I've had it for 3 years. I tried to give him the chance to tell the truth himself, privately, more than once. He kept choosing the trophy instead." On the stage, Julian looked, for the first time all evening, directly at the small backstage camera instead of the crowd. His mouth opened. For one long second, the old instinct rose in him, the instinct that had built 3 companies and survived 2 congressional hearings, the instinct to find the sentence that fixed the room instead of the truth. "Daniel," he said, and his voice carried across the ballroom on the same feed that had broadcast his acceptance speech. "You don't understand what happened out there. Nobody who wasn't on that lake could." "Then tell them what happened," Daniel said. "Not the version you gave the papers you paid off. The real one. Right now, or I put the settlement documents up next." Julian looked out at 3,000 faces, then at the trophy still in his hand, gold light catching the word legacy etched along its base. For one more second, the old Julian, the one who had never once, in 61 years, lost control of a room, almost found the sentence that would carry him through. And then his eyes dropped to the photograph still glowing on the screen behind him, to his sister's laugh, frozen mid-frame, and something in him simply stopped fighting. Elena. His voice cracked on the second syllable, and this time, he didn't try to smooth it. Elena Marie Croft. She wanted to take the boat out one more time before school started, and I said yes, because I wanted my father to see I wasn't afraid of anything. I was afraid of everything. I just didn't know it yet. He set the trophy down on the podium, slowly, the way a man sets down something he's finally admitted he never wanted. My father told me that night that if anyone knew it was my idea, we'd lose everything. So I let people believe it was just a storm. I let myself believe it too, most days. It was easier than admitting I traded my sister's life for looking brave in front of a man who was never going to be proud of me anyway. He looked past the cameras now, toward the service corridor, toward his son. I didn't build any of this to replace her, he said. I told myself that for 30 years, but I think I did. I think every building with my name on it was another wall between me and the sound of her laughing on that dock. And somewhere in there, I put up the same wall between you and me, because you started asking the one question I'd built an entire empire to avoid. He walked down off the front of the stage, alone, past 3,000 watching faces, toward the corridor where his son still stood. The live stream caught all of it. Later, that walk would be the single most replayed clip from the entire evening, longer even than his confession. He stopped a few feet from Daniel. Up close, under the harsh backstage light, he looked older than the stage had allowed. I know 3 years doesn't erase 18, he said. I know tonight doesn't either. I'm not asking you to forgive me, because I finally said her name in front of people who'll forget it by next week. Good, Daniel said, because I can't give you 18 years back tonight. I don't think I can give you 6 either, just because you finally said it out loud. He looked down at the photograph, then back up. But if you meant what you just said out there, start by telling me everything. Not the version for the cameras, all of it. The real timeline. What actually happened to the people you paid to stay quiet. Whether any of them ever wanted to say something and couldn't. Julian nodded slowly. Tonight, Daniel said. You've had 30 years of silence. You don't get another day of it. He didn't step forward and embrace his father. He didn't say it was going to be all right. He simply held the photograph out until Julian took it, and then he sat down on an overturned road case in that service corridor and waited for his father to start talking. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even close to it yet, but for the first time in 18 years, it was a door left open instead of one closing. The trophy stayed on the podium all night. No one from Julian's team ever came to collect it. In every account of the evening that circulated afterward, it was mentioned exactly once, and always the same way, as the thing Julian Croft left behind the moment he finally stopped performing his legacy and started, for the first time in 3 decades, telling the truth about it. Some inheritances aren't written into a will. Some of them are just the truth, finally spoken out loud in front of the people who deserved to hear it 30 years ago, and a door left open instead of a trophy left standing. If this story stayed with you, subscribe for more and tell me in the comments what you think happens the morning after that conversation. I read every single one.